I just want to begin by thanking Sue for the amazing work that they've done with this conference. They've been contributing to the UX community for a number of years, and I really appreciate you for that, and also for all the support team and folks behind this conference. I really appreciate it. I'm humbled to be here and share a little bit about my passion, right? UX and accessibility. Before I start, I want to learn from you, and I'm totally steal the idea from Thais Santos about how to interact with the folks virtually. And I want to ask you a few questions. I want to learn how are you dealing with the web content accessibility guidelines, right? So I'd love to hear if you could just answer via the reactions, and I'm not even sure if I can. Hopefully, I can see the emojis flying up. But I want to know, how do you apply the WCAG guidelines in your projects? Do you read the official guidelines, but you find them clear? Do you use accessibility tools, but you still need guidance from an accessibility specialist? You learn from trial and error. That's my preferred method. And then I create methodologies, or do you understand just fine? Right. There's also something on the mural board that I left. If you want to put a dot over there, if you are in there, that will also be fine. This is not just for me to understand when I'm answering questions where you all coming from. The second question is more like a test, right? What is the smallest size for a clickable link according to the WCAG standards, right? Is it 44? Is it 48, 22, or 32 pixels? And the last one is, do you have a dedicated web accessibility specialist? And let's see if you can answer there, or you wear multiple hats and you are your own web accessibility specialist. But what is digital accessibility, right? So I think when we start thinking about accessibility, we go through and think, oh, it's just a compliance that we have to meet. It's a list of standards that I have to read that I don't understand. In my mind, I used to think that way. And when I start changing the mindset to have more an inclusive mindset, I start seeing the digital accessibility more like a bridge to my users, right? It's about people. It's not about compliance. I think if you can try to change that mindset and really view accessibility about people, I think you're not only going to be creating experiences that they're equitable to people with disabilities, but it's a better experience for all users. Digital accessibility is also about unlearning bad UX habits, right? Picking any color because you think it's pretty, or it goes well with the branding style that you've been given, and you just place that without questioning. And it's also about deconstructing the things that you love to hate, right? So this past 3 days, we've been hearing from all the presenters, what is the thing that you love to hate, right? I take those as something that I can deconstruct and rebuild in a way that can make it accessible. So it's definitely a self-discovery experience for me. And it helps me understand where my unconscious bias are. And this is, in a way, very, very rooted into the way we've been learning design from the very beginning, right? And this is because, needless to say, when we fail to provide an accessible content, we're also increasing this, and then there's a form of ableism, right? So the way I see ableism is you have this iceberg, And what you see about someone is the tip of the iceberg. So you can think of you seeing me, and the moment I tell you I am Brazilian, you associate myself with, I perhaps like soccer, right? So these implicit bias that you just assume because I mentioned that I am Brazilian. I'll give you an example. And so I didn't mention what I've been doing lately. I've been actually working with the U.S. Department of Education to create an enterprise to an reporting tool for people with disabilities. And this tool is about the data on students with disabilities. So they collect the data from the students and then they have to report them, right? Just to understand where are they applying special education programs, if they're doing a good job, if they need to work on invest more in particular areas. So I think this is what I've been doing. And working on a reporting system, one of the first things that I noticed was data visualizations, right? Data visualization, if you think about this, is how we want users to visualize the data. But in truth, data representation is what we should be seeking for, right? How we want to represent the data to the user. So since I started on this project, we went through this research and we start defining like the language that we use. And we definitely stopped using data visualization. We only use data representation now. I'll give you an example of that on something that we are working on. And if you really want to make this inclusive, all right, you can want to represent the data to all users. And that's where we are. So we are actually aiming for the highest accessibility standard possible. We're reaching AAA. And I'll talk more about that in a second. All right, so here is a typical data representation. Well, in this case, it's representing students with disabilities counts in a given state, right? And where is the unconscious bias here? Well, so if someone would design this chart, I didn't design, I just took it and I'm presenting to you. Whoever designed this, had some decisions that they've made, and I can see some unconscious bias. First, like the labels are poorly described. There's no alternative data representation, so you cannot download the data. You cannot see or experience a tabular data that you can navigate with a screen reader. It's not mobile friendly. Like if you try to fit this in a mobile form factor, will be very tiny, and it's very hard to read. Some of the label is very, very small, right? Even if we try to make this accessible, we still go through some of the hurdles. And we thought about this, and so how might we create a really inclusive experience for this data representation? So one of the things that we decided, let's use a vertical component, and let's add actions where the users can experience and choose the way. Let's add a quick summary up on top, just so someone who's using a screen reader, they already listen to what the data is about, and they can see the total numbers, or at least hear the total numbers. We also provided a plain language summary of this data, which you can also hear if you don't do well with the walls of text, so you can just listen to it. So that's the first thing that I learned with this project is we need to really aim for the highest accessibility standards possible. And the main reason why is because AA is not enough. right? We may try to reach AA because that's what the legal department is asking, or the product requirements or the project requirements is telling us to do. But as a designer, it's our own responsibility to try to reach. And most of the time, honestly, they don't even mention the accessibility requirements, right? And you just go with AA. Try to take a step further. If you cannot reach some of the requirements or the recommendations, it's okay, right? But at least you're trying. You're just challenging yourself how to fine-tune the color just to reach the AAA level, right? It's just a little darker than you should be, but at least you are helping someone who's low vision, right? And increasing the font size to a minimum of 16 points, right? Do not use 12 points. So the things like that, obviously the case doesn't work for all projects, but you should try to reach that, right? And that's my point. So when you try to reach the highest accessibility standards, that creates the inclusive innovation that we all need and the entire world needs. All right, so just to remember, this is about people. This is not about compliance. And when we talk about people, we definitely need to include people with disabilities into the design process. I have a talk on how to build accessible prototype and rapid prototyping. And even before our team start designing the interface, we go through the content and we create an accessible HTML page where we can put in front of users with disabilities or the users that rely on assistive technologies, just so they can give feedback on how we navigate. So it's as simple as, if you're designing an interface, just remove the styles, put all in a single column. Is that semantically correct? Does the navigation provide a good way for the users to navigate? So definitely, like, including people with disabilities in your design process from day one, it helps save money. It helps make the products more inclusive from the get-go. And that's what I was mentioning. So it just really pushes you to create methodologies and tools for testing solutions with disabilities. Let me just take a moment here and think about this one, because I think that's the main purpose of the talk, is how we assimilate the web content accessibility guidelines. And I don't see that as a criteria. I see it actually as a design challenge. And this is really what I took in reading through the guidelines, and how can I help the team understand that this is important. And that led me to create these tools and some of the examples. So each time, every day, we have a Scrum meeting, and we have like 5 minutes at the end of the Scrum meeting where we have this ritual, and we are going through the entire web content accessibility guidelines, where I take the guideline and I convert into 4 simple slides. First is how the user is experiencing that problem and why a particular a guideline is important, how we can solve. I have a couple of examples. Actually, I have it on the Figma file. If you have that, I have another page that shows you the actual slides. That's a sample. I have the entire guideline that we are building. I'm going to make that available to the community once I'm done with that. But you can think about, this is the contrast, the minimum contrast. Gradient text is trendy right now. So how does that impact those with low vision, right? The keyboard only users. So this is a single A guideline, and this is something that we all should be ensuring that we have. I'm curious how TomTom addressed this issue, like with the touch screens, right? How do they make that accessible to someone who needs to navigate just with the hearing feedback, right? Here's another one, keyboard trap, right? So you keep clicking on tab and you don't have a way to navigate through the page because you have a pop-up that keeps going that you have a escape key that you can lead the user to where they should be, right? So these rituals that I create, so going back to take the WCAG as a design challenge and try to create tools that can empower WCAG knowledge among your team members. Another one that I did a few years ago was the What the Focus website. This was me trying to understand this guideline. So let me develop something that will actually help me understand how focus should be. And that led me to understand offsets, like the visual focus border, it by default touching the border of the input, so you can apply an offset just so you can move away from the adjacent color contrast guideline. So there are some tricks that really it's part of it becomes a best practice. It's not something that you just trying to address because someone told you to. It really pushes you to understand this. And the last one, which kind of led me to the project where I am right now, about the creating rapid accessible rapid prototyping. So you can go to nolatin.com. You can see some of the tools. Just feel free to connect me on LinkedIn. I'll be glad to showcase some of the tools or how we use them. Right? It's very well descriptive. A bunch of people helped me out with that. But we're here today about WCAG tokens, right? So WCAG tokens is something that we've been working with in our team, and we actually been using the United States design system, right? The USWDS, and it's they don't have design tokens, so what they have is just like a CSS. CSS variables on a CSS pre-processing variables. And we actually worked, my colleague, Mark Zebley, did an amazing job creating a token generator that converts all the CSS properties into actual design tokens and then into CSS custom properties, just so we can play with the UI natively on a code, so we don't have to compile all the colors, all the font size, so we can just simply change the interface on real time. So that led me to think about utility tokens. So what if we could go through the web content accessibility guidelines, each guideline by guideline, and try to understand how we can create tokens that can help us building more accessible products. So, and with that, I'll show you in a second what the result was, right? But the idea is to really use this token set of utility tokens, invite your accessibility specialists, go through that, whether you want to import these tokens, but these are only recommendations, these are only suggestions. And I leave here the invitation to this community to help on this effort. This is a community-driven effort. And I invite you all to make comments, and really, if you want to partner with me on this, I'll be more than happy to share what I've learned so far, and maybe we can collaborate on that, right? So this, just this week, I created a Figma plugin that can help accessibility specialists going through these accessibility notations, right? When they are reviewing the design resources, and they just say, okay, so I see an issue here. Let me do a quick search on the guidelines. I'll bring that card, I drop it on a design just to help our design team contextualize why this is important. And obviously, you have the token to remediate those. Let's go through that for a second. So this is the example. You have the search guidelines, so you can search for anything. You can search by the title. I'm working on adding tags. So like if you add button, every guideline that could be related to button or link will bring the appropriate card, and you can drop. The plugin is not published yet, so this is on my development and it's ready to go. I could publish today, but I want to get some feedback. I want to attract people to help me with this because I'm a team of one on this one, and I really need your help, right? The tokens, we have the tab that you can import the WCAG tokens. So right now I only have about 10 to 12 token sets. So you can see like the highlighted 247 focus visible. You have focus visible color. You can pick the color. You have the focus border width, and you have the style as well, right? And then the card where the accessibility specialist was someone who's curious about making bringing the guideline into the design. This is it. So I'll show you an example here. So you have, this is a JSON file that we're importing. This is the guideline on the side. This particular one helps with folks that have trouble reading. I myself, like if you have dyslexia or it's very hard to read, right? And so you don't want the paragraph to be too wide. You want to limit the paragraph to 80 characters. That helps with you reading quicker, so you don't get lost when your eye goes back to the beginning of the line. So that's one example here. The focus visible, the water focus. So this is all part of that. So these are the design decisions. All right. Before I do the recap, let's go on to a Figma file here. And I'll share here with you. So when I am typically reviewing the design, let's just say take this component here. So I see a couple of things that could be improved, right? So the target over here could be better. If I bring this is about 28 pixels height, right? So this could be, I would bump that to 44. That's the minimum that I would use. Also, the focus color is not the one that I would recommend for the design system, and the line spacing. Line spacing, especially if you're working with Figma, it's hard. So that's what Marco was showing earlier, right? In terms of the dimensions, and I believe Sam mentioned that too. So Figma won't take numbers, so you actually have won't take percentage. Like it will take percentage, but it's kind of hard to use the Figma variables as percentage. They don't take the dimensions. They only have the number, string, and Boolean variable and color, right? So they only have those types, right? So what I would do is, I don't think I have the plugin installed over here, or maybe I do. Well, a couple of things here. I have my cheat sheet here that I've already went through and got my notation here for 1, 2, and 3. So 1 is the button target size, 2 is the visual focus, and 3 is the text spacing. So I can just go and look for target, right? And that's my target size here. So I can actually drop the card. So with all the links, so you can actually put next to where the accessibility notes are, just so the designer can go in, they can click on the link, they can learn more. I have working on adding more resources here, like examples, right, for each one of these guidelines. And the next step is really to import. So let me just bring the, if I don't think I have the variables here. Yeah. I bring the local variables. Actually, I do, but let me just remove this and remove this collection, right? So now I only have the collection for the button, and I can bring the button here. And my button components is using some of these variables here. So let's take, the button focus color. So I don't have the WCAG collection here. So let me import those. So now I have my WCAG tokens here. And I can actually go to my focus visible and I see my color there. So what I would do, I would not recommend adding directly from here, because if I change something on the source, it will change here and it will change your design system. What I do recommend is that you take, and if you go to the GitHub page, you can take the WCAG tokens.json. You can use that to use as your own utility. But in this case over here, what I'm doing is, what I can do now, I can set my focus as a variable. Add a variable. And I wish there was a better way to select the variable from my collection. So here's my, so you can see how it changed that, right? The other thing that I would do, I would just increase the width of this focus to be whatever the focus, and you can just search for the focus. Oops, sorry. And I tell you, this is not my preferred way to work. Like the Figma variables is always like a pain for me. So I try to do my best here. So I have the focus width here, right? So now it's taking from that, and you can always go back and change yourself if you want. If you want to augment to this to 4, so you can do that. You should update that. But I probably didn't pick the proper variable. But that's pretty much what I want to show. This is more of an invitation to help. I can publish this. I would love to get some of your feedback first. And I'll share by the way, the plugin is already on GitHub if you go into the plugin folder. But I assume that some of you won't understand how to import this. This is all open source. I definitely want to have your contribution to it. Let me go back and do a quick recap on the presentation. This is about us understanding how unconscious bias leads to ableism, right? We want to learn accessibility as design challenges, so we don't want that to be this tedious constitution that we have to learn and abide to. So I think we need to take that as an experience, and as designers, we are content creators, we are problem solvers. So take that as a design challenge and gain and promote the WCAG knowledge. I think this is very important. That's what led me about 8 years ago. Obviously, you can either do through pain or through love. I hope that you do through love. I did through pain because I had to experience some of the barriers that I was myself creating to my community members. And you can drop WCAG cards on your accessibility notation and join us. I will pause here and hopefully I have some time for questions.
We do indeed. Thank you so much. would you mind just stop sharing for a second so everyone can see you?
I can figure out what the stop button is.
Should be on Zoom.
Zoom. That's interesting.
Oh, I think it's fine. Sometimes it can go away.
Yeah, it really, I can see you, but I cannot see the stop button. You can probably take over.
Oh,
There we go.
here we go.
I
Thanks
have
a
my,
million. Thank you so much for that talk. It was super, super inspiring. And I think I can speak on behalf of the Into Design Systems team here. Really thank you for your support. You've been watching all the talks, you've been commenting and participating. We really, really, really appreciate you. Um, Folks were absolutely so excited for the plugin that you shared. I saw so many reactions here during your talk. And we do have a few questions if you're up for it.
I'm all ears.
Amazing. First question is actually how there are folks wanting to participate and help out with the plugin. So someone asked, where do I sign up to become a tester for the Figma plugin?
Sure. Let me take the link here.
You is there a link? We can drop in on Miro afterwards as well, if that helps.
Yeah.
Cool, cool, cool. And for those of you attending the conference, you'll receive, after the conference, you'll receive a hub of all of the resources that were shared during our conference. So, oh, I think we have the link there as well. Cool, cool, cool. I think you're going to get some folks helping out, which is super, super exciting to see.
Yeah, I need help. So I'm a team of one developer, one designer. I have someone that's helping me on the side. So, but this is really, I think it's a community effort. It should be a community effort. This is not something, and I do seek guidance from Marco, from anyone. So he's helped me out with some of his feedback as well. So,
oh, Marco, what can't he do? Such a wizard.
Amazing.
um, so I you shared some great resources there, and particularly the token package, the JSON file that people will be able to import into Figma. They have all the references there to help them out because I suppose a lot of teams don't have access to a just accessibility specialist, and perhaps there is that, well, I guess knowledge gap, or sometimes really not time and resources, unfortunately, to be dedicated to making sure that the I guess the criteria or the challenges are being taken into considerations. But from your perspective, what in I guess in the realm of design system teams, how much is this accessibility the responsibility of the design system team versus an individual or the individual feature teams from your perspective? So how much, I guess, those working in the design system team can do, I guess, of in terms of the heavy lifting. So would you say that that's the responsibility that lies with I guess the core team, or is it responsibility of those consuming the system?
Yeah, so that's a good question because we don't typically I would assume that most teams, from my own experience, they don't get to think about accessibility requirements in the beginning, right? They always think like copy content and accessibility is always an afterthought, and that creates barriers, right? In a number of ways. You cannot test with people with disabilities if you need to remediate or if you need to add copy. That's why the website is called No Latin, stop begging designers to stop using Lorem Ipsum. And with ChatGPT, this was before ChatGPT, but ChatGPT helps you at least creating compelling content, right? So copy is no longer an issue, right? Because you have access to that. But now making things accessible to put in front of a screen reader user. So I think that's where we need to shift left, right? That's a term in the accessibility community. Let's bring accessibility in the beginning of the design process, in the beginning of the product requirements, and make sure that you have acceptance criteria that include those accessibility requirements on that. So I think that's the main issue. We're always thinking about accessibility afterwards. So
Yeah, no, definitely.
To respond to the answer, it's not design systems team responsibility. The responsibility is everyone's responsibility. If you don't see the requirements, ask the question, right? What we're trying to achieve here is we need to make this accessible, at least single A, right? So I think that creates that conversation. And if you don't have an accessibility specialist to help you advocate for that, so I think that's something that you need to consult. Consult the community, consult. Go on my LinkedIn if you want to set up some time. I dedicate 2 hours of my time each week to help designers from the community. So you can always check. I saw one of the question about APAC. So I work in the US, so we follow the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. But I'm curious if we can expand this and we can make more agnostic of guidelines and recommendations. So
Cool. Yeah, I think that kind of relates to another question that I saw. If someone is working with an app or a product that is international, are they safe to rely on the WCAG? Or, are there other resources for, I guess, region-specific guidelines?
Yeah, my experience, I haven't dealt with any international clients that would require. So most of my clients are here in the US, but I would assume that most of these laws or regulations, they rely on the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, and then they augment that with some requirements. So I think you can definitely hit the basic with WCAG and then try to augment, like I mentioned. So you can have your own accessibility tokens, and you can make sure that you have that. So you can create alias. So there are a number of ways that we can address that.
Cool. Yeah, no, that's great to hear. Great advice. You mentioned there's quite a lot of folks here asking 2 things. I think I noticed a trend here around color contrast and around how do you convince leadership. So that someone mentioned that they couldn't agree more that about invisible disability, that it's overlooked, such as stress disorder, dyslexia, etc., and that they believe in inclusiveness, but sometimes it's difficult to get to pitch this to leadership that should be something. I mean, in the ideal world, we wouldn't have to convince anyone. But do you have any tips or strategies to speak to that audience?
Yes. So I'll go back to one of the first presentations on this conference. The name of the presenter just slipped my mind, but she talks about the workflow and how to get buy-ins. So I think that's
Marianne.
Oh, there you go. Yes. So I think she explains what a beautiful presentation, right? She did. I think you need to get the buy-in. It's not a matter of you pitching accessibility to your organization. Maybe you are in that position, but you also need to think about the strategy on how you can raise awareness. That's how I got to work with my stakeholders is presenting. It's asking to go to an accessibility conference and providing a recap on what you've learned, and just try to raise their awareness about things that they are missing. I had a slide here that I removed about the accessibility gaps throughout the design process. You can probably find on the version of the file, but I think that's that. So identifying the gaps and finding ways to fill those gaps, right? And buy-ins is important. So you need to capture a sponsor that can help advocate for accessibility, or even bring the person, or put a screen reader user to test your product, right? That goes a long way. We did that many times to raise awareness. So with they having problems, right? Check this video out. We did a user research with someone from the community. I think we need to address this. So
yeah, 100%. I think there is a lot of parallels on getting buy-in from leadership into investing in design systems and into investing in accessibility. I think we can use, there's a lot from that talk that Marianne gave that could be repurposed for, getting buy-in into investing resources and time into accessibility. And I myself used that strategy that you mentioned as well, to have, so whenever you're conducting user testing and, for the observers, invite someone from leadership and invite someone, some of the stakeholders to watch. I was working as part of the railing system app in Ireland, and we did usability testing with people with disabilities, with a different group of over 65 that not necessarily had disabilities. And I think it was really eye-opening for them. So you didn't even have to present or say anything, just let them watch. I think that goes a long way indeed. And on that note, you did mention that it's you should start thinking about accessibility before the fact, but also to be make sure that you're including people with disability as part of your user testing. Now, if you are working with limited resources and perhaps you don't have access to an agency that will do the recruitment for you, do you have any tips for finding folks that would be willing to help you out with testing? Any communities that you would recommend that people reach out to?
Yeah, I'm not sure how it works in Europe. I can tell you, like here in the US, we have a number of associations, like Association for the Blind, universities. So you can really try to reach out to those local communities, right? Every city has an association for the blind or for the deaf, right? So I think that's part of how you can do that. The other thing is really, if you want to like take GAD, right, the Global Awareness Accessibility Day, I think that is a day that you can actually present on something, or invite someone to present in your organization to try to help raising awareness on the barriers, right, about inclusion. So I think that, you can do many things in terms of finding resources and reach out to the community. I'm sure someone from your community has a disability. Try to make meetups more inclusive, right? That was my trigger, right? So when I said, I really need to find an American Sign Language interpreter to help me with this. And that person became a great friend. And then I taught him to do UX, and he reached the accessibility certification. So if they are trying to reach you through the communities, because they're also thinking about career change, they also want to be marketable in the industry. So I think that goes beyond the maturity level of I need to sell accessibility, and then what do I need to do to hire someone with disability to help the team grow, right? So I think that goes a long way. It's a path that's never stops. So
yeah, amazing. Thank you so much. You answered so many of our questions. There are more questions there on a Miro board. So if you had time at all and wanted to reach out to folks, and I'm sure, is it LinkedIn the best place for people to reach you if they want to help out with the plugin or just
Yes, absolutely. So I
connect in
saw
general?
Cynthia just dropped the Fable link. Those guys are amazing. So they are a group out of Canada that they just work with people with disabilities, and that's what they do. They do user research, user testing with people with disabilities, so you can reach out to them as well. So,
Amazing. Thank you so much again. And I hope you stick around for the rest of the conference. We're nearly at the end, but there's two amazing talks coming up as well.
I'm looking forward to those as well. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Oh no, we thank you. Have a great day.